Hello, everyone, and welcome to Economy, Chapter 9, Money. Money is any publicly accepted means of payment. It is a medium of exchange. We use it when we want to exchange goods and services. It provides a way to measure value. Instead of saying something is worth 20,000 eggs, you can say it's worth $1 million. Money is also useful for storing value. If you are a chicken farmer, you probably do not want to store your eggs for the future, or even your chickens. Many of the items that we own devalue over time, but money is a fairly safe way of storing value for the future. Simple societies use barter, and notice I am saying simple, not primitive. In any small society, barter is perfectly acceptable. I don't know about you, but I have bartered many things with my siblings before, goods and services. I'll do your chores for you if you do something for me. But barter does not work very well on large scales or in very complicated economies. Not all forms of money are equally useful, and many different forms of money have existed in different places and different times. Some of them very useful, some of them not so much. The perfect money would be very portable. Remember the giant stones on page 142 and Yap. These huge stones, not very portable, but they found a way. Apparently, these stones are not native to the island. They carved these in the islands that they came from. They put them on Moana-style rafts and went across the ocean. Not very portable, but they made do. In Sparta, the leaders wanted to move away from a capitalist society so they could gain more control over the people, so they exchanged all the money for giant iron ingots to try to make people leave them at home and not be so reliant on money. Even Canadians today have $1 and $2 coins that America hasn't really done because we don't want to lug around a lot of cash in coins. They're just too big and heavy. There's a Yappy stone with a person next to it for reference. By the way, people in Yap would buy and sell houses with these, and the stones are so big they wouldn't bother moving them. All the stones would be set one next to another along the main road, and they would just keep track of who owned what stone rather than moving it to their house. I knew some missionaries from Yap, so that's pretty cool. Heard some stories about their money. Ideal money is durable. Again, you do not want eggs as a form of money. They will not last very long, and one little mistake, someone trips, and there goes all your cash. I would tell you a giant stone is fairly durable. In Guatemala, they use feathers of the quetzal bird. Very beautiful. But I don't know if they're going to keep that bright blue color for very long. The earliest paper money was in China. They just stamped their designs and words on leaves, which, again, I don't think would last for very long. In fact, anything made out of organic materials will eventually rot away. Even paper is not terribly durable. American paper money is actually more like cloth than paper. There's an awful lot of linen and cotton in our paper money, so it is much more durable than a normal piece of paper. I've put money through the wash many times before, and it's usually just fine. But our paper money does have expiration date, metaphorically speaking, and it will be destroyed one day. Ideal money is homogeneous, meaning it is the same through and through. You don't have lots of different types of money, just one. So again, with the feathers, I don't know if the feather from one bird is going to be very similar to the feather from another bird. In North America, the Indians used these shells called wampum, and they varied in color. Most of them were white, but some of them had a purplish hue, and the purple ones were supposed to be worth more. But are all the purple shells going to be the exact same shade of purple? What if it's half purple and half white? There's a lot of questions there that need answering. Ideal money is divisible. Those Yappy stones are not highly divisible, are they? What if you want to buy something that's worth half a stone? That's not very helpful. And there's a reason why we don't have $2 and $3 bills very often anymore. They're not easily divisible. You can only use them for a very certain type of transaction. You can use a $3 bill for a $3 purchase, but what if you have a $2 purchase? You're going to need change, so it's not impossible, but it's just not as useful as three $1 bills. Same thing with very, very large bills. Who goes around with hundreds in their pockets? Unless you're buying expensive things, no one's going to want you to spend $100 bill on a soda. The change is just very inconvenient. Ideal money is constant. It won't change from day to day, from week to week. You don't want to use stocks as a form of exchange. They're just too volatile. When Americans came into New England, we started setting up factories, churning out wampum at a very, very quick rate, and that kind of destroyed the wampum money business, unfortunately. Ideal money is intrinsically valuable. That is, people want it for its own sake, not just for what they can buy with it. American paper money is not intrinsically valuable even a little bit, but it is valuable because of what we can buy with it. Gold, silver, things like that, those are intrinsically valuable. You want it for its own sake. Jewels, you want it for its own sake, not just for what you can buy with it. What makes people want your cash? Is it just because the government says it's worth $5, or is it because it's shiny? Again, with those giant stones, I don't know if there's any reason to own those stones other than to buy a house with it. On page 144, there's a story about colonial Americans turning from barter to coins. And here's an example of one of those pine tree shillings. Pretty cool. Nathaniel Hawthorne's a very good author. If you haven't read him, he has a short story called Young Goodman Brown, which is only a couple pages long, and it's pretty awesome. So go read that. Also read page 144, how they transitioned in the early 1650s from barter to a more complicated society. Here is a silver coin from Athens. It is several thousand years old, probably older than Christ, over 2,000 years ago. Pretty cool. There's an owl and I believe that's an olive tree, upper left. Almost all cultures around the world eventually developed some type of metal money and then transitioned from that to paper. There's no culture that I can think of right now that is completely reliant on metal money. And then finally, in the very modern age, we're transitioning to a lot of digital currency. More about that later. Metal money is called specie. Metals are portable, very easily portable, unless we're talking about iron. But no, we're talking about expensive metals like gold and silver, where even a fortune could be put in a small bag and carried around pretty easily. Or, a pirate's treasure chest. They're durable, especially gold. Gold will not tarnish, will not rust. It's really hard to hurt gold in any sort of way. Silver and copper can tarnish, but they won't get terribly hurt. Iron will rust away. Silver and copper will just get a color to it that you can polish away. They're homogeneous. Gold from America is the exact same as gold from Africa or Asia or Australia. It's gold. Same thing with copper and silver. It's the same the world over, as long as you have a real good purity to it. It's divisible. You can have tiny gold coins, medium-sized gold coins, giant gold coins. You can have a gold coin any size you want. While I'm thinking of it, look up the largest gold coin in the world. It's worth several $1 million, and it's gigantic. Look that up. I think it's from Australia. It's fairly constant. Gold will always be valuable, although nothing's going to be 100% constant. And it is intrinsically valuable. People like gold and silver because they're shiny, not just because they can buy them. Why has gold and silver, but especially gold, become the coin worldwide? This explains why.
I'm Jacob Goldstein.
And I'm David Kestenbaum.
We're here on 47th Street in Manhattan, where every day people spend thousands of dollars buying and selling gold.
For thousands of years, people have used gold as money.
But there are more than 100 elements in the universe. Why use gold? To find out, we tracked down an expert.
My name is Sanat Kumar. I'm the chair of chemical engineering at Columbia University. The smart place to start is to use the periodic table.
The periodic table is everything that exists in the universe. All the elements, each one in its own little box. There's tin, there's mercury, there's gold.
So what we're going to do is play a game of bingo. We're going to cross out the elements that will not work as money.
Let's start on the right-hand column. Big drawback, all gases.
Sanat, here's my wallet.
Oh, thanks a lot. I'll give you as much money as you want. Just say when.
More money, more. So let's get rid of the gases.
Over here, these guys aren't gases, but we've got another problem. They're reactive.
And I'm gonna take sodium and show you what happens.
This is just water.
Boom, you're broke now. That's it.
You don't want money that blows up when it gets wet. And it turns out this kind of thing is a huge problem. Lots of elements are reactive.
Iron rusts.
Magnesium catches on fire.
These ones down here, they're radioactive. Your money would disappear, and it might kill you.
All that gets rid of a lot.
So now we're down to 7 finalists.
Using just chemistry, we've ended up with only what are called the precious metals.
But even here, we can cross things out. Iridium and rhenium, I'm gonna say they're too rare. It's really hard to find them, even today.
Palladium, rhodium, platinum, they were unknown in the ancient world.
And even if they had been known, people back then didn't have the technology to make fires hot enough to melt them.
That leaves us with just 2. Silver was used as money, but it tarnishes, so it's not ideal.
And it's too abundant. You really want to use something we make forks out of?
That leaves us with just 1 element.
Gold.
I think that was fascinating. There is a chemical reason why gold is used as coins around the world. Pretty cool stuff. Even gold and silver can and do fluctuate in value. The amount of metal available will determine how precious that thing is. And in different places, gold can be very valuable and rare, or not very valuable and abundant. I mean, in the 1940s, 1949 in San Francisco, people are paying for their potatoes in the morning with gold dust. So there was definitely some inflation there. When gold is too valuable, sometimes governments decide to make coins, and they cheat by making gold coins, but they mix in some other things in with it. And here is a chart of the silver content of Roman coins. And you can see in the 60s AD, 90 to 100% silver. And as the years go by, it's going down to 10% or less is real silver. Cicero was a famous statesman of the day, and he's made many famous speeches. I love this one. The budget should be balanced, the treasury should be refilled, public debt should be reduced, the arrogance of officialdom, that is, of politicians, should be tempered and controlled, and the assistance of foreign lands should be curtailed, lest the republic become bankrupt. People must again learn to work instead of living on public assistance. Sounds like something that a modern day person would say about our government. It's too much debt. There's not enough people working hard. Politicians are arrogant and getting us into messes that our children are going to have to pay off our debts. Anyway, the debasing of Roman money is definitely pointed to by historians as one of the reasons why Rome fell. Not the only one, but one of them. With debasing of your money, the amount of metal has nothing to do with the face value. So the face value means how much the money says it's worth. So you get a quarter and it says it's worth 25 cents. Well, is the amount of material in that coin actually worth 25 cents? Well, the government says it is, but not necessarily. Hey, sometimes money is worth more than its face value. If you get a rare coin, it might say it's worth 10 cents, but it might actually be worth a couple $100. I knew a guy who was into collecting old pennies and weird pennies, and he brought over a box of pennies when I was a little kid, and we had to sort them by year. And he got really excited by a penny that was worth, I think, like $4 or $5, which is 400 times its face value, but still not worth it. Gresham's law. If the people don't trust the money, they'll look for something else that they can trust. If the money gets debased, or if there's some other reason why people do not like the money, they'll look for something that they like better instead. Sir Thomas Gresham was an advisor to Queen Elizabeth. Bad money drives out good. If governments issue new bad money, people often hoard the old money and say that the old money is worth more than the new money, even though it says the exact same thing. Too much money in circulation causes prices to rise. That's inflation. Too little causes prices to decrease. That's deflation. Both of them are very, very harmful. Inflation, of course, can destroy your bank account. If you had $1 million in your bank today, you would be considered rich. But if prices inflate too much, then $1 million might be worth a loaf of bread. And you go from being super rich to being dirt poor very, very quickly. With deflation, people hoard all their money instead of spending it. That causes depression. Widespread use of paper money is very, very new. Although paper money has been around for a while, for over 1,000 years, using it often as the #1 method, even preferred over coins, that is very, very new, just a couple hundred years old. When paper money first came out, it was not very trustworthy. People didn't like it. People would rather have their coins, which is why it often said on the paper money that it represented real money. So over here on the right, it says the possessor of this bill shall be paid 8 Spanish milled dollars. A Spanish milled dollar is probably a silver coin that the Spanish made. Paper money issued by banks or governments is called legal tender. That means that the government allows it to be used as money, and the government declares that it is real money. And if the government has said that it's legal tender, it must be accepted as payment. All money in America does have the phrase legal tender on it. American money, American bills say, this bill is legal tender and is it's legal for the payment of all debts, public and private, something like that. By the way, even though money does say it's legal tender, people are allowed to say, no, I don't want that kind of money, especially when you use a very large bill for a small transaction or thousands and thousands of pennies for a very large transaction. And there's a really weird workaround why this is acceptable, and that is the technical point of sale. When you're at the cashiers, that is when the company is offering to exchange their groceries for your cash. And so when they refuse your $100 bill, they're not refusing your bill, they're refusing to have a transaction with you. So it's like they're not refusing your money, they're refusing you. And that's different, I guess. But there's lots of examples of people, here's a guy, he has a $3,000 bill at the DMV and he's being a jerk. So he wants to pay it in wheelbarrows of pennies. I hope the DMV turned him away because they are allowed to say, come back with a check or the credit card, because that's just not nice. Fractional reserve banking is a modern method of doubling your money almost. Say I have $1,000 worth of gold, I can issue $1,000 worth of paper money because the paper money represents real gold. This is back in the day when I actually did that. Well, how much gold do you think people will come in and ask to have? That paper money represents the gold, but how many people are actually going to come in and trade their paper money for gold? Let's say I only need $150 in gold for the average day. What am I going to do with the rest of that cash, the rest of those gold coins? Well, the bank's going to lend it out as a profit. All your money in your bank account is not sitting in the basement of the bank. No, it's lent it out. What happens if a bank borrows that? Well, then they can also do the same thing, keep part of it and lend out the rest for a profit. Here's an example of that. The original bank gets $100. It keeps 10% as a reserve and it loans out the other 90%. Well, then the next bank takes 10% of that and loans the other 90% of it. And with just a couple banks doing this, they've already loaned the same cash multiple times. What started off as just $100 has now been acting like $171. That's pretty insane. That's pretty cool.
First paper money was issued by banks, not by governments.
Here's the Bank of Austin, Minnesota. I've never heard of Austin, Minnesota, but apparently there was a bank there. And every bank in the country would issue their own paper money. That led to hundreds and hundreds of different types of paper money around the country, and that was just confusing. Imagine, just trying to change your money from town to town. It just did not work very well. So governments would take over, and originally in America, we had 14 different types of governmental paper money, one for each state and then one for the central government as well. And that was confusing as well. Fiat money is a type of money that is not based on specie. It is based on just the government says so. Something is worth $5 because the government says it's worth $5. Fiat means a declaration. With this type of money where it's not gold and silver, it's based on the government's declaration and then your faith in the government's declaration. Well, what if you don't have faith in the government's fiat? What if you don't believe that it's worth what the government says it's worth? Well, there's lots of examples of that. In the U.S. Confederacy, the paper money the Confederacy issued became worth less and less every year, at the rate of about 25% inflation a month for a little while. And then, of course, at the end of the war, it was worth zero. During the French Revolution, same thing happened. In the 1920s in Germany, same thing happened. Zaire is a great example. Modern-day Congo. This is the dictator, Mobutu Sese Seko, dictator of Zaire, was eventually run out of town, and all the money has his face on it. What are they going to do? Well, they're going to print out new money, but in the meanwhile, they have to use his money, so they just cut out a hole in his head, so you don't have to look at the evil dictator while you're using his money. They eventually just printed out new money with different people's heads on it. That money is not worth very much because the dictator who said it was, well, he's gone. Modern day Zimbabwe, they have $1 trillion notes, pretty crazy. And here's Venezuela. Guys are going around with wheelbarrows full of money. Today we don't think he's a wealthy man. We have two brand new forms of money beyond paper money. First one is digital. This is my bank account. I have 310 pounds in it, as you can see. Your bank account is probably not backed by real paper bills. So if you have 310 pounds in your bank account, that might not be represented by 310 1-pound notes in the real world. It is simply a string of zeros and ones in the computer. And this is very similar to how bills today are not backed by gold at all. You can't go to a bank and ask for $20 in gold if you give them a $20 bill. The government, therefore, does not actually have to print new money when it wants to put more money into circulation. They just have to add some zeros to their own bank account. And that's what they do most of the time. So the government just spent $2 trillion in the coronavirus bailout for everyone. Where do you think that money came from? Do you think they actually printed out 2 trillion $1 bills? No way. They just gave a check to everyone and said, well, now you have more money than before. Mine was deposited digitally, so I don't even think they sent out a check to me. They just added zeros and ones to my bank account and said, congratulations, new money. Kind of crazy how new money can just appear because the government says so. Something even newer and even crazier is called cryptocurrency. Crypto means secret or hidden in Greek, I believe. Cryptocurrency, like Bitcoin, works off of blockchain technology, which is really complicated, and I don't understand half of it. But apparently, it's like a string of numbers that act like a puzzle, a long puzzle chain. And there's blocks along that chain that are all connected to one another. And each block is worth, 1 Bitcoin, which is a lot of money, like thousands of dollars. Cryptocurrencies are not run by any government in the world. They're not even run by any bank. They just are. Whoever invented them just got the ball rolling, and now the money is just there. No one's making it. No one's overseeing it or regulating it. There are no laws, no rules. It's just there. You can create new Bitcoins. It's called mining Bitcoins by using computers to solve really weird and tough, complex equations to try to find out the next piece to the puzzle. And if you discover the next block in the blockchain, well, you are awarded 1 Bitcoin. And there are people who have literally thousands of high-tech computers all running day and night trying to mine 1 Bitcoin. I would not recommend going into cryptocurrency just because there's no governmental oversight whatsoever, and well, it's weird. On that note, my brother, oldest brother, has made his own cryptocurrency, Wise. So
buy one of those, I guess. We'll see if that becomes the next big thing. There's a story in your book on page 150 about John Randolph and Henry Clay, who went to a duel, tried to kill each other, but just pretended to kill each other and shot in the air. And it illustrates, the people at the time really did not trust paper money. So you can read the story for yourself, but apparently Randolph thinks he might die, so he wants to get some real gold coins that his friends can melt down and like put his face on it or something and have a commemorative medallion. And no one has any gold coins, so he sends a buddy to go to the bank to ask to withdraw some gold coins, and the bank says, no, we're not giving you any gold. So he goes and he withdraws all his money, and they want to give him all his money in paper money. He says, no, I want real money. So they give him all his money in silver, and he takes his money to a different bank that will give him real money, not paper money. Well, what makes money real? The government saying so? If the government says paper money is real money, but no one wants it, that's not real money. If most people have the attitude that paper money is not real, then it is worthless. What's the point of having a $100 bill if no shop owner will accept it? Money is only valuable as society thinks. Sorry, there should be a K there. As society thinks it is. It's not as valuable as the face tells you. It's as valuable as society thinks it is. What can you get in exchange for that? Money used to be valuable because it was rare and difficult to make. It's rare to find gold, and then to turn that into cash is going to be fairly difficult. Today, it's not rare to find paper, and it's not hard to print paper. It's not hard to take some cash and photocopy it, although you're not going to get a good result if you do. It's really hard to understand why a scrap of paper is worth $5, $10, $100. Why do the little scraps of paper have the exact same value? American money is fairly unique in that it's all the same color and it's all the same size. Most nations around the world have paper money where the different types of money have vastly different colors and even different sizes. The different sizes are mostly for blind people to be able to tell what different pieces of money are. That's pretty cool. Well, how come this piece of paper is worth $100 and that scrap paper is only worth, it's worthless? You throw it in the trash. What about digital money? That's even less tangible. I can't even see it. The bank says I have X amount of dollars, but those dollars aren't anywhere? What in the world? There's three different types of money that economists look at: M1, M2, and M3. M1 money is all of your transactional bank accounts, means like your checking accounts. All the cash in the checking accounts, plus all the coins, plus all the paper bills, plus all of the cashier checks, traveler's checks, that type of thing, other pieces of paper that stand for real money. Just maybe 100 years ago, M1 money might just be coins and currency. It's just coins and paper money. Well, today it's also bank accounts that are not backed by coins and currency. Traveler's checks are things that I don't think they're as popular anymore, but you can go to a bank and ask for cash to be changed into something called a traveler's check, which has your name on it, and you can then exchange it in a foreign country for cash there. And it has like serial numbers and things on it so that if you lose it or it gets stolen, you can get your money back, and it's safer than traveling with real money. Same thing with a cashier's check. If you have a very large transaction and you don't want to do it, with a suitcase full of cash, you can get a cashier's check just by going to the bank and asking for one. And that cashier's check is different from, like a check that you and I might write, in that our checks are a promise to pay, but that is actual cash in the form of just a piece of paper that says this is worth $20,000. America's M1 is about $3.8 trillion. That's up quite a bit from your book. Let's see, when was your book published? Copyright MCM LXXXIX. Let's see here. 1950, 60, 70, 80, 1989 was the last copyright. I'm sure it was updated more than that. Yeah, because there was a reference of 2008. Let's say 2008 was one of the latest updates to this book. And your book says it's only about $2 trillion M1 money. On page 152, it says that the M1 money is $2,261 billion, but last August it was 3.8 trillion. So America's money has grown an awful lot in the last decade. The next type of money, M2, it includes all of M1 plus less accessible money, like savings deposits and money market funds, things that you can't get to very easily. Certificates of deposit, remember those have a timetable that you can't access them for another 20 years or something. The reason that these are not counted in M1 is because that certificate of deposit probably represents money that is then used by that bank for a loan somewhere else. So that money is counted in M1. And you can differentiate even up to M3, where M3 is all M1 plus M2 plus bonds over $100,000. So as you make the ring bigger, you're looking at different types of money. I think this M1 is fascinating, trying to count all the cash in the country plus everything else of value. It's pretty cool. And our M3 money is about $15 trillion. Regular checks and credit cards don't count as cash because they are not cash. They are promises to pay cash, and they're not themselves. The Constitution gives Congress the right to coin all money and regulate its value, and Congress does that through the Treasury and the Federal Reserve. It regulates the value of cash. Why is this $5 bill worth $5? By regulating the amount of cash in circulation and trying to cause inflation or deflation, or slow inflation or deflation. Too little money, people hoard it. And then if no one's spending any money, there's a depression. We're actually seeing this right now. People are at home and not spending their money, and that's bad for the economy, which is why the government gave everyone a couple $1,000s, hoping that they go out and spend their money. So then the shopkeepers can go out and spend their money. They can pay their workers, and then those workers take their pay and go out and spend their money. Money only works if it keeps on circulating. It doesn't help the economy if it's just sitting under your bed. Anyway, if there's too much money, it causes inflation, which, by the way, giving everyone in America $2,000 will definitely cause inflation. Imagine if the government gave everyone $1 million. Would you then go to work for $10 or $12 an hour? Well, why would I go to work for $12 an hour if I already have $1 million? So people are going to have to pay their workers way more. Maybe I'll only go into work if you pay me $1,000 an hour or $5,000 an hour. And of course, if you're paying your workers $5,000 an hour, you have to jack up your prices insanely high, and then no one's better in the long run. A little bit of inflation is okay, but too much is pretty ridiculous. Congress created the Department of the Treasury. It was one of the very first departments run by George Washington. He chose Alexander Hamilton to head it up. The Department of the Treasury was told to make money, and at that time, states were not allowed to make money ever since Washington's time, since the very beginning of our new Constitution. And the Treasury not only makes the only money in America, it also decides how much money should be circulated at one time. It has two bureaus. The Bureau of the Mint makes coins, and the Bureau of Engraving and Printing makes the bills. Very interesting how they make it. Definitely go to YouTube and watch how it's made, coin edition. It's fun. After making money, they deliver pallets and pallets of money to the Federal Reserve. I didn't know this before, but the Federal Reserve is not part of the government. It is a private company that works for the government, but it is not part of the government. The people are not elected. There's very little oversight by the people. It's only started in 1913. We've had lots of different methods of overseeing the money before then. We've had national banks, and we've had 3 or 4 different systems. Look up, what's his face? Andrew Jackson fighting the National Bank. That's pretty crazy times. So in 1913, it has 3 main groups. It has the Board of Governors, are the people responsible for running the place. They are appointed by the President and Senate, so there is some oversight by the government, but they do not have oversight over the day-to-day things. They just hire the people who do. The Federal Open Market Committee makes decisions about buying and selling bonds, and that basically decides how much money is in circulation. if you buy a bond is, an IOU, a promise of payment. If you buy a bond, I am giving a citizen cash in exchange for an IOU. If I sell a bond, I'm giving a citizen an IOU in exchange for cash. So that can bring cash either into the Federal Reserve or out of the Federal Reserve, depending on if I want to make inflation go higher or lower, or what I want to do. And then the Federal Reserve banks, there are 12 banks that are run like normal banks, but they are part of the Federal Reserve System. So those pallets of cash go to these Federal Reserve banks, and then the Federal Reserve banks make loans to First National Bank and other banks, and they get cash from them. They can decide what their interest rate for loans to banks would be, and that pretty much decides the interest rates of loans that normal banks give out to normal customers. So the changing interest rate by the Fed will decide if your mortgage will be 3% interest, 3.5%, 4%, 5% interest. And they can change that depending on what they think the economy needs at the time. Lower interest will make less money for themselves, but it will also encourage people to take out loans. Higher interest makes more money for themselves, but it also discourages people from taking out loans. The cash made by America is 100% fiat money today, although in your grandparents' time, there were silver dollars or silver half dollars, and you could go into a bank and exchange paper money for gold and silver. Not today, though. Today it's 100% fiat money. The government promises that the bill really is worth the face value. Do you believe the government? American money is some of the most sought after money world over because America is one of the strongest, most stable governments world over. So you can pretty much take American money to most places in the world and someone will accept it. Probably not in Europe because they have a pretty good monetary system themselves. Go to anywhere in Africa or Asia or South America and they will appreciate your American greenbacks. Even our coins are not worth face value anymore. We don't have silver or gold coins anymore. We have things like nickel, tin, and zinc. Even our pennies aren't pure copper anymore because copper is fairly valuable. And it's too expensive to make pennies out of copper anymore. So they're, I believe, zinc, and they're just dipped in copper. There's only a very, very little bit there. Federal Reserve has 3 ways to manipulate how much money goes in and out of circulation. First one is called open market operations. That means they buy and sell things in the economy. And the number one thing they buy and sell is government bonds, promises by the governments to pay. We just talked about that. They can set the reserve ratio, which is how much money the bank needs to hold in its bank and how much money it can send out. So we just looked at that lending system where I get $100 and I lend $90 and I only need to keep 10. Well, if there's a tough time, the Fed might say, well, all banks in America need to keep 20% in now. And that slows down lending, but it also makes sure that everyone has the cash that they need. To try to help lending, they say, well, today you only need 5%. At the end of the day, you only need 5% of the cash in your bank account. The discount rates, the Federal Reserve is allowed to charge the rate of interest that other normal banks have on their loans from the Federal Reserve Bank. So once again, that can encourage or discourage lending. If there's a lot of bad loans that banks are making, they're lending money to people that can't afford to pay it back, then the Federal Reserve might up its rate of interest to try to discourage banks from doing that. That is what caused the 2008 recession. Because a lot of banks were giving out loans to people who they knew could not afford to repay them. Very sad situation. So if you want to get a mortgage, you're going to have to sit down with a banker and show them how much money you make, that you have a stable job and here's your income. And they will look at that and decide how much money they're willing to loan you. Well, a lot of banks were giving out what's called subprime mortgages, which means they will give someone a loan that is probably too expensive for someone to be able to pay back. And so they maybe make the first couple months payment and then they miss a payment. What does the bank do? It swoops in and takes the house and then tries to sell the house. And that can be very lucrative for the bank. It obviously ruins people's lives, but it's very lucrative for the bank. until if you do that too much, then the bank owns a ton of houses, and the bank doesn't want to own houses. The bank needs cash. So if the bank has a ton of foreclosed houses and no one wants to buy them, well, that's going to be really bad news for the bank. You're just sitting on houses no one wants, and you need to liquidate them, and you can't. So you might have to try to sell that house for half of its actual value, and then you just cause a fiasco for yourself. So if the Federal Reserve thinks that banks are lending too much or too foolishly, they'll up that discount rate. People will only work if they get paid, and not necessarily in cash. People work for themselves. I've been stuck in the house for a while. I've been doing a lot of home improvement chores around the house, and I'm not getting paid cash, but I am getting paid in, seeing the result of my hard labor. I built a little shed for my firewood, and I've been cutting a lot of firewood with my new chainsaw. It's really fun, cutting and splitting and stacking. And I'm not getting cash for that, but I am getting firewood for that. I would only go into a job situation if they were willing to pay me cash. A lot of people wish that they were rich and dream of getting rich, but of course, money isn't everything, and I don't know how many movies tell that story. But the idea that money isn't everything is a very, very old idea. The ancient Greeks had the story of King Midas. There are actually many stories about King Midas. Many of them have a point to the story. Well, one of them is he makes a god happy, so the god gives him a wish, and he wishes, instead of for 100 more wishes, he wishes that everything he touched can be turned to gold. And he's super happy for a while because he knows he's going to be super duper rich, and he's turning everything to gold until it's lunchtime, and he can't eat or drink anything because all his food and water are turning into gold, and he's really upset about that. And then his little girl gives him a hug, and his little girl turns into a golden statue, and he's horrified. I just murdered my little girl. He's really sad. He goes back to the god and says, "Take it away, take my curse away. It's a curse, not a blessing." And so the god says, "Okay, pour some spring water over the golden items and they'll turn back." So he does that, and he gets his daughter back, and they all live happily ever after, and King Midas learned not to be greedy. In Ecclesiastes 5:10, Solomon, one of the richest people in all of history, says, money doesn't satisfy. If you love money, you will not be satisfied with money. Job 121 says, I came into the world naked, and I'm going to leave naked. I didn't bring anything with me. I'm not going to bring anything out of this world. 1 Timothy 6:7 says a very similar thing. You don't see a hearse carrying a U-Haul. 1 Timothy 6 then goes on to say the love of money is the root of all evil. In King James, that is a little bit misleading. It does mean the root of all kinds of evil. Not every sin is done out of greediness, but any type of sin can be performed out of greediness. Has anyone killed for money? Has anyone lied for money? Cheated for money? Been immoral for money? Of course, every type of sin possible could be done for money. Has anyone betrayed their country for money, or betrayed their Lord and Savior Jesus Christ for money? Judas did that for 30 pieces of silver. Loving money can get you into heaps of trouble. Matthew 6:24, you can only serve one master. You cannot serve God and mammon. Mammon is an old-fashioned saying when you're talking about the bad parts of money, evil money. You can't serve the evil urges of money while you're serving God. You have to pick one to serve. Proverbs 15:16, it's better to be poor and be right with God than it is to be rich and have a terrible life. Proverbs 23 says money talks. It says bye-bye. Money sprouts wings and flies away. That's a fun metaphor. Riches certainly make themselves wings. They fly away as an eagle towards heaven. Bye-bye, money. Easy come, easy go. Don't be so concerned about money. Just remember, money makes a wonderful tool and a terrible master. Wonderful servant, terrible master. Like any other tool, it's not good or bad, but it can be used for good or it can be used for bad. I'm sure you can think of a million evil ways to use money, but did you know that there are some righteous ways to use money? You can use money to get people to heaven. You can use money to send out missionaries. You can use money to buy Bibles and print Bibles and send them out. You can use money to build a new church building. You can use money to pay your pastor, to pay for the lights in your church building. Money can be used for an awful lot of good. Speaking of money used for good, it is always so awkward when a pastor has to stand up and say, I need your money. Because there's so many pastors that are real jerks who are in it for the money, and there always have been. Paul talks about this way back in the day. There are some pastors who are millionaires and who flaunt that because they're taking all their people's money. There's others who are not. But Paul said, I never like asking you for money because I don't want to be seen as one of those bad guys. Well, there's a pastor down south who encouraged his congregation to give their stimulus checks to the church. And a lot of people are criticizing him for that. I hope that that pastor is not paid a percentage of the offering. Because if he's paid a percentage of the offering and he's telling everyone to give the church the money, he's really saying, give me the money. Most churches that I've seen and heard of pay their pastor a salary, so the amount of money you give to the church over and above that really does not affect the pastor's salary at all. And it can be sent to, to help the community, to help missionaries, to help buy Bibles and just pay for the lights and things like that. I hope that you are starting to help out your local church. I know not all of you have jobs and you do have colleges to look forward to and pay, but if you have a little money, you should be spending that money on eternal things. Use your money for good, not for evil.